Hello everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to class, y'all. Today we're doing clue number 4. Hello everybody. Grab your clue. It's down in the description box down below. There's how you get to the description box, everybody. Hello, it's so great to see you. Well, people are getting scan and cuts. People are going to the expo in Atlanta. I've been just breezing through the comments, waiting to start. Hi everybody. Hello, hi. That's so exciting. You're getting a new scan and cut. It looks like Judith is getting one next month. That's awesome. Hello. Hi. Clue number 4. Today we're working with D and E fabrics. Okay. If you're using the same colors as mine, it kind of reminds me of like an Andes mint. Do you get those vibes from these colors? I know several of you have swapped out the colors. And yeah, I love following along in your progress over on Creative Crew, so feel free to share. Hi, everybody. Let's flip down and take a look at this week's clue. Let's see, where are we at? Here we go. Clue number 4 is a 2-page PDF, right? Pardon me, y'all. This is going to be the first time I've really talked all day today. So sorry. Okay, one of the things I want to show you before we get started today, I'm going to be showing you 2 different ways to do this clue, okay? The first way is we're just going to be sewing like normal patchwork, piecework. We're just sewing pieces, right? And so those are the templates you're going to find on the first page. I did put a little print box right here so you can check your settings when you're printing, because the next page is for paper piecing. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this clue, and you can pick your favorite way. All right? Some of you might like paper piecing more, and some of you do not like paper piecing at all. So I'm going to show you both ways today. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see you. So D and E fabrics today, right? So I'm working with the Caribbean. Mine is flannel. If you have followed me from the very beginning in this series, you know that I accidentally ordered my Caribbean in a flannel. I did not order more. I'm just working with it. And it's working out fantastically. And then the D fabric. If you're swapping out your colors, right, and you're trying to decide which colors to use, my suggestion is that for your D fabric, that it be darker than your E fabric. That's just my suggestion. If you haven't already figured it out, this is just part of a block that we're doing in this clue, right? This will be sewn to other parts to make up a block. So, just a suggestion, D fabric darker than the E fabric, right? Tammy says, I love paper piecing. Yay, I'm going to show you both ways today. Mary says, I'm in the no paper piecing group. And that's okay too, Mary. You either like it or you don't, right? So let's go over cutting your pieces if you're in the not paper piecing category, okay? And that's on the first page. So what I did is I gave you templates. You know, a lot of new quilters don't have all of, a big selection of rulers and mats and things like that. So if you're extremely brand new and you're following along, you can cut out directly on the lines of these templates and use these templates to cut out your pieces. But if you have the different rulers and a mat and a rotary cutter and you want to cut them out quickly, I did type out some cutting instructions to speed along the process of making these pieces, right? So let's go over cutting instructions for piecing. Isn't that so pretty? That's our finished block right there. Let me take a sip of this. Maybe that will help. My sinuses are all messed up, and I have a little bit of, it's not a sore throat, but something right there is not feeling fantastic. Okay. For piecing, from your D fabric, you're going to want to cut 4 strips that are 5 1/4 inches wide, right? 5 1/4 inches. If you're working from yardage, you'll cut 4 strips, right? And then you're going to rotate those strips, and I'm going to move this over there. Then you're going to rotate your strips, and you're going to cut them again at 5 1/4. So let's do that. This only goes to, hold on one second. Let's use this one right here. I really like this new blue mat, right? But I don't like the lines on it. My gray mat had lines throughout the whole thing, right, that I could use. This one does not. So 5 1/4 inches wide for your strips, and then you rotate them, and then you're going to cut them again at 5 1/4 inches, and you're going to make squares, right? Let's do this 5 1/4. 5 1/4, 5 1/4, line it up like that, and we're cutting again. You're going to go through all your strips and cut them into squares just like that, right? And then with your squares, you're going to cut them 2 times on both diagonals. So you'll rotate them, and you'll cut them. Whoops, I don't think it cut through that first time. There we go. You'll cut them like that, and then you're going to cut them the other way. And you're going to cut all of your squares just like this, and that's going to give you a whole bunch of triangles. You need 112, 112 of these triangles, which actually cut pretty quickly. Because, I mean, with each square you get 4, right? But your fabric is doubled, so each square gives you 8. It does go by pretty quickly. I cut all mine yesterday. So here's your squares, right? And you can just double check them. You can just put them right here on this first page template and just double check them, right? They should be the same size, except I didn't cut off the little tips of the triangles where the template does have you cut those off, right? So that's how you cut out 112 D triangles. From your E fabric, this is the tricky part if you're brand new to using a ruler, right? You're going to cut 6 strips that measure 3 3/8 wide. So this is 3 3/8 wide. I think so, Terry. Right there. It's a little swollen and it kind of hurts a little bit. 3 3/8. Let me just show you what that looks like, in case you've never seen that. Let me grab a pointy thing. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 inches. And then notice all of these little marks. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is the next inch, right? You'll count over 1, 2, 3. That's your 3/8 mark. That's the line that you would line up and cut your strip. Okay? If you're paper piecing, you don't have to worry about the 3 3/8, right? So you'll cut 6 strips that are 3 3/8 wide, and then you're going to rotate those strips, and you're going to cut them again in 2 squares that are 3 3/8. So let me just measure over. I'm going to give myself a nice clean cut because that is not. So I'm just going to clean up that edge. Okay, nice clean edge, right? 3 3/8. 1, 2, 3. I line up a line right along the raw edge like that, and then right on that 3/8 mark, and cut my squares that way. And you'll go through all your strips and cut out your E pieces. So while we have those here on our table, and so we don't get them confused with anything else, let's go ahead and piece together one of these units. So we'll take one of those squares, right? And it might be helpful to have your pattern sitting right here because we're working with some triangles and it can get a little tricky, right? Nan, you have an orange cutting mat. I might have to look that up. All right, so for me, sewing these pieces together is a lot easier if I have this just sitting there, right? And to get started, I just turn my square like that because it just helps my brain to see which order these triangles get added, right? So we're going to be adding 2 triangles to this unit. And I just want you to pay attention to the long edge of the triangle. You know, there's 3 sides, right? 2 short sides and a long side. The long side goes towards the top, right? But when we go to sew them together, I want you to notice when we turn this over, the short side of the triangle is longer than the raw edge of your square, right? So the way to line it up is I want you to line it up perfectly along these 2 edges, and your extra bit of triangle should be at the top, right there. And then you're going to sew that seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me get my iron turned on and let her heat up. Set your machine to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we're going to bring this over and we're going to sew our first seam. So the extra tip is right where we get started sewing. We're just going to line this up like that. And we are watching this 1/4 inch seam allowance. With this method, cutting these pieces, that 1/4 inch seam allowance is important. So if I were piecing all of my pieces this way, I would just have them all ready, right? I would add all of them, just chain stitch all of them, the first triangle on, and then cut them apart and press those seams, and then go back and do the second one. I think that would be a much faster way to go through this clue, right, is to chain piece them. Today, I'm just going to do one of these. I'm actually paper piecing this clue. So I'm only going to do one of these with you. Now I did, as part of the practice, you know, when I'm prepping these patterns and I'm making sure that everything is really accurate before I give them to you, I do go through and I do a pieced one and a paper pieced one just to make sure. And what I found was with this version, piecing it together this way, I found I got a much accurate measurement finished unit if I pressed these seams open. And that's just me. It might be because I'm using flannel, right? But I found that my piece came out true to size if I pressed the seams open. Paper piecing, I did not have to do that. I have not found a new house yet. We're still looking. All right, so we pressed that first seam, right? So let's bring it back and let's lay it right back down into place like that. So next we're adding the second triangle, right? So we're going to flip it over and we're going to line it up on these two raw edges. And that extra bit is going to hang over the top just like that. And we're going to sew that seam. That's going to give us, and I know it doesn't show because this is a finished picture, right? It doesn't show that 1/4 inch seam allowance, but what it does is it does give us a 1/4 inch above that square so that when we sew this to something else, we're not losing the point of our square, right? So let's go sew that. Look, I got brand new pretty leaders for you today. All right, so coming back, this is what we look like, right? And I like to just go ahead and cut off these little dog ears while we're right here before I press anything. And I just take a pair of scissors. Can you see that? And I just trim off those little dog ears. And then bring this back over, and we're going to open up that seam and press that one open as well. I just like to work it with my fingernail just to get it to start to behave like that, right? And then we're pressing. Thank you, Anita. Ooh, you have a pink cutting mat. I have not seen a pink one. I thought the blue one would be kind of easy to see, you know, during the videos. I think it is. I'm not sure. But I didn't realize that until recently that it's missing a lot of the lines that I'm used to in there. I think maybe this is more for just like regular arts and crafts kind of cutting, maybe. All right, so there we are, y'all. Nice and pretty, right? So if you want to double check, this should measure from tip to tip 8.5 inches. All right, so if you make one and you're wondering, is it the right size? Let's just double check. Yep, 8.5 inches. So mine's going to be longer because I did not cut. I want you to see. On the paper piecing template, it has you cut off the little tips of the triangle, right? So if you lay this right on here, it should fit exactly right inside there, right? Except for the little tips. See that? You can cut those tips off or you can leave them on. If I were piecing this block and not doing paper piecing, I would probably just leave that on and cut the dog ears because that's what it's going to form is little dog ears as you start to piece this unit with other ones, and you will eventually cut them off, right? So there is our finished piece. So I think the hardest part, if you're piecing, is staying accurate with your 1/4 inch seam allowance and cutting the 3 3/8 measurement of your strips. Now, I know some of y'all are really good with math and you're able to resize units and still have your units come out, the finished unit still come out perfectly. And y'all have been really helpful in sharing that kind of information over on the Creative Crew. So I'm not sure, because I didn't 3 3/8. I'm not sure if you can round up to 4 inches. I don't know. I'm not sure if you can round up to 3.5 inches. I don't know. I didn't try it. Okay. I have a Juki HZLF 600. Where did I find my cute iron? It's on Amazon. It's a steam fast. All right, so that is piecing. Did we have any questions about that part? I'm just going to wait a second. I might have missed some. At first, when I was cutting and prepping and doing the practice pieces, right, to check, I thought, well, I'm just going to sew all of mine just the way that I showed you and not do the paper piecing portion. But I went ahead and I worked ahead and I made the completed block, which you don't know what it's going to look like, right? And for me, I think paper piecing is probably the easiest way to do it really accurately. I mean, I do feel like my piecing has improved, right? My piecing has really come a long way. But as far as accuracy, I did a couple of these to make a whole block, and some of them were perfect and spot on, and some of them were not. So I was like, well, at least with paper piecing, I know all of the units are going to be exactly the same, so I'm doing paper piecing. All right. Okay, so let's move on to paper piecing. Paper piecing. I feel like I'm missing so much of the conversation. Let's talk about the cutting. If you want to pre-cut all of your pieces for paper piecing, right? I do give you templates if you want to use these to cut out your pieces, which are really helpful if you're cutting from scraps, right? If you have a bunch of baskets or bins of scraps and you're cutting from scraps, these templates really do come in really handy. I'm not going to use them today to cut out the pieces for you, but if you want to see how, like a demonstration of how I use the templates to cut from scraps, this week I put up a video about the flower pot table runner, and I used the templates in that pattern to cut my pieces from scraps. And so that's how I would use the templates. But if you are using a ruler and you want to pre-cut all your pieces, I did give you instructions for that. I have a Juki HZL F600. And I love it. So what I did, y'all, because I do plan on chain piecing all of these, right, is I cut out all my pieces and I printed 5 pages of page number 2. So what you're going to do is you're going to print out this page. You're going to cut out the template on this outside line, right? And I have a whole bunch of them here, right? And then you're going to score them on these 2 lines in between the different sections, right? You're just going to pre-fold them so that they fold nice and easy 2 times, just like that. And there's your template for paper piecing. And then the cutting instructions are much easier for this part, right? You're going to cut from your D fabric, you're going to cut 5 strips that are 6.5 inches wide, right? And then you're going to cut those strips into squares that are 6.5 inches wide. Let me grab this ruler again. And just like we did with the piecing portion, right, we're going to cut those into triangles. 6.5. I don't want to lose that because that's part of all my measurements. There we go. And then we're going to cut these pieces So this square should measure 6.5 by 6.5. We're going to cut those on both diagonals as well. Which is a little tricky while you're sitting down. Right? Again, you're going to need 112 of those triangles, and the cutting does go by pretty quick, right? So I have already pre-cut all of my triangles. I just have them in a bag. And because I have so much going on up here between showing the piecing and the paper piecing, here are all of my triangles pre-cut, and I just put them in a little Ziploc bag, right? I don't want to lose this because I just did cut 5 strips, and I saved one so that I could do the demonstration with you. But these are actually going in my quilt, and I don't want to misplace them. So let me put those in there, right, before we move on. Because this room is a disaster area. Y'all have no idea. So those are the triangle pieces. And then from your E fabric, instead of cutting that 3/8 measurement, these you can round up to 4 inches, right? So these, oops. I have the salvage in there. Let me just take care of that. So nice clean edge. And these squares we're cutting at 4 inches. You're going to cut all of these strips. You're going to need 6 of these strips to do all of them, right? And I've already pre-cut 5 of my strips, and this is the 6th one. I don't want to lose it, so let me put it in there. So I'm ready to just sit down and start doing a whole bunch of sewing, right? Actually, hold on a second. We're only going to use one of these. I need this one in that bag too. I'm from Virginia. If you're from Vermont, I would say I'm from the South. If you're from South Carolina, you probably think I'm in the North. I don't know. Okay, so here's our pieces for paper piecing. And I'm going to arrange them just like that, like we did earlier, right? There we go. And I'm going to bring in one of these templates. And this time we don't have to worry about the accuracy of a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's lovely. And I'm going to bring in a glue stick though, right? And so that maybe you can see a little bit better, I'm going to change my presser foot to an open toe foot. Since that 1/4 inch seam allowance is not that important, maybe you might see a little bit better. I will tell you, one of the things I do when I'm paper piecing, even if I'm not sewing through the paper, which I don't, you might like to sew through the paper, but even if I'm not sewing through the paper, I still like to lower my stitch length. So I'm going to lower my stitch length to 2.0. All right. And we're going to start with the E piece. Let's start right in the middle. Okay. And we're working from the back. So when you pre-fold the pattern, it gives you the shape. You can see where that shape is, right? I'm just going to take a little bit of glue stick and just very lightly go right inside that shape. The very first fabric that we're adding, we're going to put right side facing up, right? There's the wrong side, the right side. So it's really important that the fabric extends beyond both of those folds and the outside edge of the paper, right? And we cut it pretty big enough so that it easily does that. And I'm not going to use any heat because I feel like the glue really bonds to the fabric that way and rips the paper a lot more. So I'm just gonna like finger rub, finger baste that fabric right in place for a second. Yeah, Vicky said, I like being able to round up and then I have room to trim and square up. Quilt Cave Quilter 69 said, yep, you're up north. If you ask my husband, I'm a Southern belle because he's from Vermont. Okay. Noreen said, how do you not sew through the paper? Watch this, Noreen, you're going to see. And you can reuse this template over and over until it falls apart, right? So we have our fabric basted to the paper. Just a normal Elmer's clear glue stick. You can use the purple one too if you like. And because these two pieces are exactly identical, it doesn't much matter if you start over here or if you start over here with your next piece. That's why I did not number them. It doesn't matter which side you start with, okay? We are going to fold over one of these sides and we're going to trim up that E fabric to 1/4 inch. So just using a ruler, I like these because it has an edge on it. The add 1/4 ruler has a little edge that catches that paper fold, right? So there's our 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to flip this over and I'm going to lay it right here. And I want you to pay attention to the shape of that triangle piece we're adding, right? Bring in your triangle. And it should be laid out exactly like this. This is your long edge of the triangle, long edge of the triangle. You can even go like this and then flip it over right onto that E fabric, right? You do have some extra fabric there to play around with, right? So we're going to flip it over and then fold back that paper template just like that, right? You can put a little binder clip on there. You can pin this if you want. I'm just going to pinch it like this and bring it over to the sewing machine. All right, so what we're doing is we're not sewing through the paper. We're going to sew with our needle riding right along that paper fold, right? Right next to it. So there's our first piece. And so when I have some free time and I plan on knocking out all the pieces for this clue, I printed out 5 more patterns. So I'm going to be doing 6 at a time, right? And I will just have 6 of these and just go through and then trim them up, and I'll work in batches of 6. That way I wasn't printing 56 patterns, right? But I'll just work in batches of 6 and also 6 seams and then do the next part, right? And I think that would speed up the process. All right. So we're coming back here. We're going to open up this paper, right? I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the section that we just added. And it's not a lot, y'all. It's a really light swipe. It's just enough to grab the fabric while we're working with it. And we're going to flip the D fabric right over. We're not stretching the fabric, but I am being firm with it, right? I want to rub it so that it catches that glue. And then I want to take my fingernail and just pre-press that seam, right? You can even use, if you have one of these seam rollers, you can even use that and really work that seam. I used to press it with my iron each time I flipped, but the paper would stick so bad on the back of the fabric that I'd end up ripping the templates, right? So I don't use heat yet anymore. But I'm just going to rub that glue right in there like that. So there's our first two pieces, and we're moving on to this side. So let's flip it over. We're going to fold that side right over, and we're going to trim off everything, leaving only the 1/4 inch. Right? And let's flip that back over. That's the long edge of the triangle. Long edge of the triangle. And we're going to flip it over and line it right up. Just like that. See? Super easy, right? Let's hold all that in place and fold that template right over. And we're going to sew that seam. So I would just sew my next 5, right? And just work in batches like that. And then come back over here. And we're going to add a touch bit of glue right there so that we can trim this all up nice and pretty, right? And this piece won't be flopping all over the place while we're doing it. We're going to fold that fabric over. And I'm going to press that seam just like that. So you would think you're done at this point, right? But we've added extra fabric to make the paper piecing really super simple with this clue. So let's flip it over and you can see all of that extra fabric. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to trim everything that goes beyond this paper template right to the edge of that template, right? And so with this line right here and to the edge, that represents your 1/4 inch seam allowance that you're going to use to join it to something else down the road, right? So we're going to just trim up all 3 sides of this unit. And what's really helpful is if you're like me, you might start trimming off pieces of the paper, right? So this line right here, if you match that up to a 1/4 inch mark on your ruler, you for sure stay accurate with your trimming at this point, right? So instead of paying so much attention to that paper edge, take that inside line and match it up to a 1/4 inch line on your ruler, and you will stay very nice and accurate. We're going to flip that over. Usually I do this part standing up. So there we go. And you'll notice that there's the extra points. See those extra tips? Now the paper piecing pattern, if you cut them out true to that pattern, you're cutting away little dog ears, right, that are going to end up somewhere down the road being trimmed off. You could leave those on there if you want, or you can go ahead and get rid of them now if you want, right? Depends on how busy you are. I think sometimes I trim them off now, and sometimes I just wait till later, right? So there we are. There's our finished piece. Isn't that perfect? Yes. And then we can just very lightly pull at that paper. And because I didn't use any heat, most of it's going to come off pretty easily. And if you have any glue stick that sticks to the back of your fabric, right? It is Elmer's school glue. It will wash out of your quilt the first time you wash your quilt, so it's okay. There we go. There's our finished piece. Nice and pretty seams on the back, and we did not have to worry about cutting the 3 3/8, and we didn't have to worry about staying very, very accurate with the seam allowance, and we have some perfect piecing, right? So there's those two. I am going to use this one in my quilt too. It turned out pretty fantastic. That's the pieced version. You're going to make 56 of these little guys, and you're going to save them, right? 56 of them. I cannot wait to start saying your clue number 4. I feel like I've missed so much of the conversation. Can you print on heat and bond light? Yes, as long as you don't have a laser printer, Trinita. If you have a laser printer, I say no, right? But if you have an inkjet printer, yes, you can. You absolutely can. Make sure you're printing on the paper side and not the bumpy side. Make sure you feed the paper in so that you're not printing on the adhesive. That might make a mess. All right, there we go. So I have all of my templates right here, right? And all of my pieces are all pre-cut except for the strip that I cut from today. I've still got to cut those. And I'm ready just to sit down whenever I can this upcoming week and just go through and do some really simple sewing. And one of the reasons why I love paper piecing so much is because it allows for me to not have to concentrate so much on accuracy. If you know much about my life right now, it is busy and hectic. And although this piece turned out really fantastic during this video with you, some of my practice ones were not exactly perfect. So this week, the paper piecing makes all the sense for me. Eileen, you got it. Good. I think paper piecing is one of those things that the first couple times you try it, right? It is so confusing, and you're like, I flip it, and sew, which side do I sew? Which piece do I sew first? Do I put the fabric right side up or right side down? It's really confusing. And then if you are patient with yourself enough to do it a couple of times, it clicks, right? And it starts to make sense. And then you're like, whoa, well, this is super simple. But I do think it takes a couple of times of doing it for it to make sense, right? For it to not be so confusing, at least for me. Some of y'all probably do it the first time and you're like, oh, that was super easy. For me, I had to do it several times for it to make sense. Carol, if you want to find the templates, you're going to go down in the description box. Yeah, not sewing through the paper. I know some of y'all love sewing through the paper, and that's the method you started with, and you were like diehard sew through the paper quilters, right? And I get that too. We're all different, and I'm not saying one way is better than the other. Whichever way makes more sense for you, whichever way you like better, that's the way you do it. I do think you would go through a lot of paper to print 56 of these, right? But yeah, if sewing through the paper is your thing and that's what you like to do, I'm all for it. I just think, I can print off 5 or 6 of those and just reuse them over and over again. I want to thank my moderators today. Thank y'all so much. Sheila asked, preferred choice of storing. Storing the pieces? I'm not sure what you're storing away, these pieces or something else. Oh, are the zip bags? Yeah, okay, so these bags that I'm using, y'all, I do sublimation, right? I offer a service in my Etsy shop where you can send me your photos and I sublimate them on fabric for you for your quilts, right? So as part of that, I had ordered these Ziploc bags to put the photos in to ship them, but I didn't like them for putting the photos in. I like a nice clean presentation. And so I ended up not using these Ziploc bags for shipping the photos in. So now I have like 200 of these Ziploc bags. And so I've just been using them to pack stuff in for packing and for my clues. Like when I pre-cut all my pieces, I just put them in there. But yeah, like a gallon Ziploc bag would work just as easy. I just have 200 of these that I'm not using for anything else. They're a great size though. They're like 9.5 by 12 or something like that. And I bought them on Amazon. But I really didn't like them for shipping the photos in. So I went with something else for that. If you have some kind of, you know, those pretty boxes that have a lit, you know, they look like wallpaper or whatever, and they come in all different shapes, you know, and the lid flaps over and has a little magnet that snaps shut like that. Those are great for storing clues. If you go to like the Dollar Tree or Dollar General or somewhere like that, or, you know, any of the stores that have like Tupperware containers that are on the bigger side, those are great for keeping all your pieces together while you're working on them, and you can reuse them over and over again, right? This whole quilt is not paper pieced. Certain sections, here's my thing, I like to give you options, right? So this clue number 4, you can piece it traditionally or you can paper piece it. It's up to you, whichever way you prefer. There are other clues that are exactly like this. Not the same shape, but I give you options. I give you both, right? You can piece it or you can paper piece it. There's also applique in this quilt, right? Some of the clues are just solely applique portions of this quilt. Yeah, I have to use these bags somehow. I've actually been packing up a lot of craft stuff for the move, and I've just been using these Ziploc bags just to kind of throw stuff in so that in a packing box, just random stuff isn't all mixed up and floating around in the box. Sharon said, what brand and size of computer do you have for quilting and craft use? This might be a great question for everyone else because my computer, I think, is overkill for just crafting, like for printing patterns. If you're just using it to print patterns and watch YouTube videos or be on Facebook and things like that, I think this laptop is a little bit overkill for that. But I use a Dell Inspiron 7000. It's really good, but see, I edit a lot of photos and I do a lot of design work on it. I don't know that you need a computer exactly like that. Oh, good, Donna. You found the little pointer thing at the Dollar Tree. Have you used it yet? I like mine. I have a couple of them. Like I have one here and I have one at the packing station. Yeah, I like mine. Sheila, they do. And they keep, you know, all your stuff together. I have clue 1 in a bag And then I have the applique portion on the blocks. I have that in a bag. This glue, once all these pieces together, you know, are like this, they will go in a bag. And it just helps me stay really organized. I am so, like, I'm scared I'm going to lose. Well, you saw when I was cutting pieces, I was like, I got to put this with that because I don't want to have to go back and cut more. It just helps me stay organized. Sheila said, will there be a catch-up week? Yes. I think several of you are going to think some of the clues are really great catch-up weeks. Without giving anything away, let me just... It's not going to be next week, though. Well, okay, so next week is going to be a really, I say, a light week, right? This week we're making 56 of these units right here. And some of you are like, that's a lot of sewing, and that's a lot. And it's going to take me forever. And some of you, I imagine, are going to be done with this clue by this evening, if you aren't already. And then, yeah, so this clue, I feel like, is on the heavier side when it comes to work. There's a lot of pieces to cut, and there's a lot of pieces to sew. Next week, I consider next week super easy. And so next week might be a catch-up week for you, right? I really feel like next week is super light. And then, what are we doing after that? My version of light and yours might be different. I don't know. And then the week after that is going to feel very familiar to you. And you might think that that's a light week and you might hate that clue. I don't know. And then clue number 7, I think really when I was thinking catch-up week, clue number 7 for me would be a catch-up week. Because all you're doing is cutting during week number 7. There's no sewing during that week. You're just going to be cutting some specific pieces, and that's it. So I really feel like week number 7 is nice and catch up. And who knows, with packing and listing our house, we might have to take like a week's break somewhere in there. I don't know. I really don't want to. But you never know. But I do feel like some of the weeks are more labor intensive, and then some of them are a lot lighter. Oh, which Dell do you have, Sharon? I might have missed it. Yeah, the S mode on computers, right? That's tricky. If your computer is in S mode and you try to download programs and things like that, and you're trying to figure out why you can't, right? It's probably because your computer's in S mode. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube showing you how to take your computer out of S mode. Sharon, check that out because maybe the Dell computer you have is in S mode. We have not found another place yet. No. And to be really honest, we've only just been scouring the listings every day. We have not gone to go look at any of them because, here, let's go back to this camera. The 14th, Valentine's Day. Is that Tuesday? The 14th, they're coming to take pictures of our house. So we have been like, the other day I was painting and touching up baseboards and doors and stuff. We're just trying to get the house really nice for pictures. So that's the 14th. And then by the end of next week, our house will be on the market, right? And then I feel like we can take another breath and slow down and start going to look at other houses again. Our realtor is awesome, but she's like, here's a whole list of stuff for you to do before picture day. And so we have been like nonstop. Matter of fact, I had been hosting Zooms for this quilt, right? But tonight I am painting trim in my closet. We have like a shoe rack in our closet, and the soles of the shoes have scuffed up the shoe rack, and I can't get the scuffs off. And I just want that to be like nice and clean for the pictures. So I'm going to paint my shoe rack in my closet this evening. This afternoon, I'm going to help Harlan pressure wash the deck. But no, we have not looked. I mean, we've been scouring the new listings that come on, and there's a few houses that kind of meet what we're looking for, but none of them all exactly perfect. But yes, I'm going to the quilt show this month. Are you? Are you going? Oh, Tracy, oh my glory. I can see where your mind has been elsewhere. I'll be praying that there's a full recovery. That's scary. Wow. Yeah, Peggy, it's going to be a fast transition and a fast move, I think. And here's how nice Harlan is, right? He is so perfect. When we do move, one of the first priorities of getting, I mean, other than the coffee pot, right? That's like top priority. Unpack the coffee pot, put the groceries in the fridge, right? Those are, and get the pets settled. And then the necessities that I need to work. And that's how awesome he is that he helps prioritize that for me. Isn't that great? I think we're going to have Peggy a contingency on this house that, because, you know, we did have a contract on a house that we withdrew, right? That we can't move out of this house until we have a house to move into. Because even though we've packed a pod and they've picked it up, we still have a lot of stuff in here. And I don't want to put it in storage and then move it out of storage. And I don't want to move it twice. We want to move from here to there, right? And because my business is from home, I can't have a long transition period, right? And so, yeah. Wow, you had 23 days to vacate when we sold. Rory said, what kind of printer do you use? I have a couple printers. Okay, so my normal printing patterns, right? I have an Epson EcoTank 2800. And I print, you know, all my paperwork. Taxes. Y'all, I've been doing taxes all this time, too. It's great for printing stuff like this. It's really, really cheap. The ink lasts forever, right? Epson EcoTank 2800. And then for my sublimation printer, I use the Epson EcoTank 15,000 series. And it does wonderful. Coffee, yes. Priorities, you got to unpack the coffee first. Ooh, Sheila, you're going to the quilt show. I think for sure I'm probably going Friday and Saturday. I think. For sure Saturday, but I like to go Friday too when it's not so busy. Saturday is like a really busy day there. I like to go Friday when it's not quite as busy. Oh, Sharon, so you have the 15. Check to see if it's in S mode. That might be why you can't download the whatever program you want to use to edit photos. Check out a video on YouTube how to take your computer out of S mode. Cheryl, you've been doing tax stuff too. Guess what? I'm ahead of the game. So I had all my stuff done. And this year, so last year I hired an accountant, right? Because it's just getting way too confusing for me, right? So last year I hired an accountant like back in September. And then, so this is the first time the accountant is doing our taxes. So I'm doing my business taxes separately this year because I changed my business from like an LLC to an S Corp. So now I'm like, yeah, someone else has to do my taxes. But there's still all the stuff you have to get ready to do the taxes, right? So I've been trying to do all that. So I have all my stuff submitted. And I've already got the business portion done, and they're working on our personal return. But that's a lot of work getting all that stuff together, isn't it? Delia, yes, I have the Epson EcoTank 15,000, which is a bigger printer. The quality of the prints is phenomenal. I would say the Epson, the smaller one that I have for just office stuff, I probably would not use that one for sublimation. I'm not saying you can't, but I think there's a few models between the 2800 and the 15,000 that are better suited for sublimation if you don't want to go with the 15,000. So I would watch some YouTube reviews on different printers. But yeah, you can, instead of putting the normal ink in it, you put the sublimation ink in it. And then it's only a sublimation printer after that. Noreen said, I went to a mystery class, quilt class, where I picked the fabrics beforehand. I didn't like my color choices even though I liked them before. How do you pick your fabrics when you can't see the finished quilt? That's tricky, right? And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people are sort of hesitant when it comes to mystery quilts, right? Because they're not sure what it's going to look like in the end and if their fabrics actually work or not. I don't want to reveal the quilt and the colors. The specific fabrics that I use is a gorgeous quilt, but I understand if those are not your colors and you want to change them out. My biggest suggestion at that point is if you don't, if you're hesitant, I'd always wait. If you don't want to pick the colors and the color scheme that is suggested, I would wait until the quilt or the project, whatever it is, reveals itself, and then go back, and it's not a mystery at that point, right? And you can safely assign different colors. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people are hesitant about mystery quilts. Is because you might really love the fabric off of the bolt, right? You might think it's so pretty, but once it's actually pieced into the quilt in the end, you might regret some of your fabric choices. I totally get that. Peggy, you're going to an accountant too? Yes. You know what I needed help with? Well, besides the fact that you know, I changed from an LLC to an S Corp. They handled that paperwork for me, right? Because I don't know how to fill out all these forms. I have no idea. So they did that for me last year. And then they can also help me like prepare for the future. Like, I'm all for paying my fair share of taxes and all that, right? But I was paying a lot of taxes where formatting my business differently saves me on some self-employment tax, right? I actually put myself on payroll, and these are things that an accountant knows what to do. I was just doing my thing and paying even more taxes, right? So an accountant really helps with that, but they'll also take a look at my numbers each month, right? And say, you know, now's a really great time to invest in maybe like a 401k, or, you know, maybe do this or maybe do that. And they have the knowledge where that's not, I don't know that stuff. I need that kind of help, right? Sheila, yeah, this is a learning quilt for you. I'm so proud of you for joining in this one. I know I'm really strategic over my books. But that because of that, my books were ready when it was time to submit them. Like, I was like, "Yep, here's this, and this." And he was like, "Wow, you're like the first one of my clients to submit all of your stuff." I was like, "I feel accomplished because my books were in order." Don said, "I bought the fabrics that Lisa suggested, and I'm so glad I did. If I hadn't invested in this particular fabric, I probably would have given up already." Aw. Well, I hope that you wouldn't have given up, but I do like the colors of these fabrics, right? This block, it's not a block yet, but this unit, this clue that we did this week, really gives me Andes Mints vibes. I think it's this, in person it looks a little bit less bold and bright, but it just reminds me of like Andes Mints. So if y'all have hung out with me all this time, thank y'all so much. You might tell I'm talking a little bit funny. I'm trying to get used to at least one of my partials. I'm sorry if I talk a little funny today. I feel like I have to say that, right? But y'all have been following along in my journey, right? And I feel like sharing this stuff with you because I know I'm not the only one. But it's hard to get used to this stuff. I feel like I've been talking funny since we started. That's why. Quilt Girl said, "This is my first time doing something like this. And you're enjoying it. I'm so glad." Ah, my sweet Gan Gan is doing it as well. Ah. I'm assuming that's your grandmother or someone really special to you. Y'all are doing it at the same time. I miss my Nana so much. Peggy, you got your fabric last week? Sheila said, "You sound normal." I feel like I am like not sounding normal though. Oh, it's gonna take some getting used to. Trinita, it is my birthday month. It is. Hazel, you're so nice. I don't think Hazel, I don't think you would tell me if I was talking funny. I don't think you would tell me. Pamela said, "Had mine a year and still have," oh my goodness, a year. And I'm hoping I get used to it. before a year is up. I'm still healing on the bottom, right? So I had a molar taken out back here. And you know how sometimes when you have a tooth pulled, while your bone is healing up, like little slivers of bone will like come out or something? I have one of those on the inside of my gum. And so if I tried to wear my bottom partial, it hurts like the dickens. Not only that, I do know that like this one, I need to have adjusted. I already know that. And so I'm hoping when they do that, that I'll talk a little bit more easily. Plus, I mean, I know I have to get used to wearing them, right? But I can tell it needs, they need to fix it a little bit. So I'm hoping it'll be better after that. Oh, Deborah, I'm so glad this quilt is giving you something to look forward to. Being a caretaker is probably one of the most important and maybe one of the most difficult jobs ever, isn't it? It really is. Like, I feel like, bless you so much for being a caretaker, but it's not easy, is it? I'm so glad that you have something to look forward to. Anita said, 27 years in my house. We have moved so much. I am really praying that our next house is like my forever house. We kind of thought that this was, but it really isn't. I mean, you know, when you buy a house and you're all excited about it, right? But after you live in it for some time and it just doesn't fit, right? I feel like I have a country soul, and this house is not my style and really does not feel like home to me. Do you know what I'm saying? We thought it was going to. Oh, it's your aunt. And you're doing it from 2 different states. That's awesome. My aunt is the reason why I quilt today. I still have her rulers. I still have the 2 books that I got from her. And you can't quite see it, but right above that crate right there, that and that area right there on my shelf, that's her fabric. And I use it from time to time, but I'm like really stingy with it because she's gone. She's been gone a long time, but my aunt is the reason why I quilt. My birthday is on the 27th. Oh, Shannon said, my husband has a country soul and I am a city girl. Opposites usually do attract, right? Opposites attract. All right, y'all. I've loved hanging out with you. Usually, I like to reserve some time after we do our project for the day or whatever we're doing, right? Just to hang out and to chit-chat and catch up. So it's been really great. And here's the thing, y'all. The chat sometimes goes by so fast, and my intention is never to ignore your questions or your comments. And I always come back and read the live chat, usually that night. And I always feel really, really bad because I end up seeing a question that I missed or a comment, you know, that I would have responded to. I always feel really bad about that. So I just want to let you know that it's never my intention to miss any of your comments or your questions. Yeah, I love you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Feel free to share your pictures. I have had so much fun. In between all the work and stuff, you know, I do go over to Creative Crew several times a day. And I have had so much fun looking through all your stuff. Y'all are giving suggestions on different ways of doing it other than the way that I show, which is fantastic. All of our minds work differently. Lots of you are using different colors than the ones I suggested. So maybe you see a colorway that someone else is using, and that gives you an idea, right? Lots of you have questions, and you're getting your questions answered. It's a great group over there. Thank y'all so much. All right, everybody. I guess I'm going to go power wash a deck to this afternoon. That, if you were my neighbor, it would be very entertaining, right? I think it would be entertaining because this power washer is stronger than I am. I'm actually quite nervous about it. I can imagine if I were my neighbor and I didn't have anything else to do today. Watching me power wash any part of this deck would be very amusing. Wish me luck, y'all. All right, everybody. Bye. I'll see you over on Creative Crew, and then I'll see you next week, right? Can you believe we are already done with 4 weeks? 4 weeks. Clue number 4. Have fun. Bye.